Does whoever they hire, we got 9 names, does whoever they hire actually, they'll make it to the Dome? Do they survive to the Dome? Jim Schwartz set to interview for a second time for the job, as is Todd Monken. We don't know who else is going to get a second interview. It doesn't feel like Tommy Rees is in the mix anymore. A lot of reporting and conversation. He is going to head to Atlanta to join Kevin Stefanski's staff with the Falcons. Again, in case you live under a rock and didn't hear, Kevin Stefanski got a new job last night. Arthur Blank grilled some steaks for him, sealed the deal. So no interviews with the Titans, no second interviews, I should say, with the Titans, the Dolphins, or the Ravens, because, again, he got a 5-year deal to take over as head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Dan Pitcher, the offensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll see if he gets a second interview. James Rapine is going to join us at 10 o'clock to get a little 411 on him and the effect of, is it really just Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase doing their thing? Or is Dan Pitcher really like the genius behind Zach Taylor, who is the last man standing in this division? Mike McDaniel has interviewed for the job. I don't know that he's going to get it. I wouldn't mind him as an offensive coordinator for sure. I don't know if I'd hire him as a head coach, but we'll see if he still stays in the race. Nate Scheelhaus, who they've recently spoken with, the Rams pass game specialist, heard a lot of really good things about him, but I don't know if he's ready. Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter is interviewed. Jaguars offensive coordinator Grant Udinski, he spoke with them yesterday. I believe he is the final first-round interview. I think we're on to the second round now, which I believe begins tomorrow with Schwartz. Oh, and I was remiss. I did not mention Seahawks defensive coordinator Adden Dirty, who did a pretty good job last night against what has become a very beat-up San Francisco 49er team. But I will say this. If it's a defensive coach, Schwartz is gone. If it's an offensive coach, I think you got a chance of keeping Schwartz as your defensive coordinator.
So for me, everybody thinks differently, but for Schwartz to get passed over, and then you hire a young guy and then you ask him to stay, that's a really unique thing. Obviously, money talks, other things walk, right? But that would be, as a head coach, when you interview and you don't get the job and you bring in another defensive guy, obviously, like you're saying, he's gone automatically. Then you're taking a lot of these guys who fit this scheme, they're not as good in another scheme. Now, if you hire a young guy and you expect Schwartz to stay, that to me doesn't make a lot of sense either. I don't see you're telling Schwartz, hey, we want you to stay. You're good enough to but we're not going to hire you. You're not that. That's not how a lot of coaches think. And obviously he's a little bit older, and he's, with that, once again, maybe he's a guy who wants to be, especially in this situation, just a coordinator. There's so many things. There's so many football guys that like coaching football. Right. And when you become the head coach, that goes away a little bit. And that's kind of the thing that a lot of guys don't like. So it is a very interesting dynamic. And you're right. The big thing is, and I told everybody, when Kevin was removed, most likely this defense took a hit too. And that's the ripple effect of this firing. And hopefully they can kind of maintain what they're doing defensively, schematically, because this is what these guys kind of really thrive in.
Dirty and Minter, do either one of them fit what is here already on the defensive side of the ball? Because they have invested the last 3 years in bringing in players specifically for Jim Schwartz. And this is really one of those first times in this whole expansion era where the Browns have actually been able to invest in a system, right? Like they were able to build around something. And I don't know if I like the idea of having to retool what is already a good defense to make it fit another guy. I guess if Jim Schwartz moves on, right, whether that's by his own, well, it would probably be by his own choice, or if the new head coach comes in and says, yeah, we're going to do things differently. I want a different defensive coordinator, assuming the Browns give that new head coach that authority to move on from Jim Schwartz. But All that being said, I don't want to shake any of that up if I can help it. So which one of these guys is Jim Schwartz light?
Well, I would say Dirty's much more like schematically they're both different, right? They're both two hi-hat guys. If you look at Jesse Minter, he comes from like the Wink Martindale, Mike McDonald, that whole if you go back to Michigan when he was at Michigan, this whole
right.
We're going to win on first down, we're going to put you in a bad situation, then we're going to pass rush and be creative on second and long when you have to throw. Dirty's an interesting guy because they were so good up front. He plays a two shell, but still able to stop the run with those four front guys, which is very similar to what the Browns do up front. Now, schematically they're different, but Dirty fits Schwartz's defense scheme a little bit more in terms of I am going to dictate what the offense does. I am not waiting. We are attacking. So in terms of schematically, they're not the same, but philosophy-wise, they're going to attack. They're going to dictate what the offense does. They're not going to be reactive. Jesse Minter is more of we're going to win on first down. We're going to be creative on second, third down with our simulated pressures, 4, 5, and man, different types of stuff, and then coverages-wise. But if you're saying who fits Schwartz, it's Dirty because he likes to get after the quarterback, regardless if the schemes are a little bit different.
I don't know what they could run right now. They don't have anything. That is you've got, from my standpoint right now, Coach, you've got three pieces. You've got Quinshon Judkins, who started off hot but got worn down and unfortunately got hurt. Dylan Sampson, which showed you glimpses of brilliance, and Harold Fannin Jr. You have to pretty much rebuild the entirety of the offensive line, including the depth behind said offensive line. And the wide receiver room, they just need to take a blowtorch to that thing and just completely fumigate it and redo that too. So, and we know what the quarterback situation is. So, I don't know. It's open season. Whatever y'all want to do, right? But this is why I'm asking the question about does the next head coach make it to the Dome? Because it's a rebuild from the ground up on that side of the ball, similar to what we were just talking about the defense, right? Not wanting to change up what you've spent the last couple of years investing in. Well, I think it's important that the young coach make it to the Dome, because if you spend the next 2 to 3 years stocking the offense to run a certain system, don't you want to see it through with that young offensive coach?
Well, yeah. So if you bring in pitcher from the Bengals, right now you got your 11 personnel, so you got to go out and get receivers. Does your quarterback match? You have a tight end that's flexible. Does Judkins work more because he all zone, because that's what pitcher's going to be, more of a zone guy. Then if you're going with Shieldhouse, he's a McVay guy, so lots of motion. You got to have big receivers that can block. You got to be able to have receivers that are kind of like big tight ends, even though Puka Nacua is a receiver. He's a big guy, likes to block, if you go back to Cooper Kupp. So, yeah, you got to figure out, I think instead of, what will the offense run, you'll know more when that offensive coordinator's hired, because like you said, this is from the studs up. So whoever they hire as offensive coordinator, he is going to – that'll excite some coordinators. We're going to draft and go through free agency. We're going to build kind of what you want, because we don't have anything right now besides, and Fannin's a guy, because he's not a true tight end, he's a great piece, because whatever you run, he'll be a good piece for.
I can't stress the fans enough, because there's a lot of – every single one of these candidates, and this isn't just Brown, I'm just talking in general, every single one of these guys know the X's and O's. Everything looks good on the whiteboard.
Always has.
Okay?
Always has.
You would agree with me. I'm
Absolutely.
not. Listen, I respect the coaching profession.
Yeah, no,
I'm not picking on you.
No, I'm with you.
But, if we did a Coach Riz on a whiteboard, right, and I was like, hey,
I never lost a game there. I've never lost a game on the whiteboard.
You're undefeated, on the whiteboard,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely right.
And this is what happens in a lot of these interviews. Like, the owners get blown away by the coaching presentation when he's going through his scheme, right? Whether it's 11 personnel, 12 personnel, whatever they're going to run offensively, and they're drawing the route trees and everything else. And the owner's saying, oh, this is going to be... You got to have the players to run it. Like, it's a player's game. Okay, yes, coaching matters. Details, discipline. I call it the double D's of coaching. Details and discipline. That stuff matters, all right? Kevin Stefanski had the details. Sometimes didn't have the discipline with the team, okay? Sometimes the details, though, are a little too intricate for what you're doing and the personnel that you have. But your scheme on the whiteboard is only going to be as good as the players you have to work with.
That's it. You just said that's exactly right. You absolutely win with players, Daryl. That's well said. And people don't understand that, but the scheme is way overrated. It really is. You got to have people. Your scheme looks great when you have great people.